to let go, you don't just naturally one day just be like, I need to let this go. In my mind, I think something has to trigger you or something must have had to happen for you to be like, okay, I need to let this go.
Hello, I'm Sam.
And I'm Amelia.
Welcome back to Ask Drew, a podcast where we aim to build a better mindset for better relationships.
Yeah, this week we are going through better mindset, better relationship, and we're talking about if there is a difference between letting go and moving on.
Yeah, that's actually a good question. I was actually thinking about this off the mic and I was like, fuck me, what is the true difference between letting go and moving on?
Let it go. Let it go. Don't hold it back anymore. Let it snow.
Calm down, mate. Relax, brother. Relax.
Well, so do you think that there is a difference between letting go and moving on?
Yeah, when I think about it, I actually got a bit stumped because I initially thought that the two are quite confusing. But
you mean the same thing? Or?
Yeah. I think in my brain, I was thinking it is kind of the same shit.
So what is your definition though between
of letting,
two?
Yeah, so letting go is really just letting go of that particular something or whatever it is. You still might emotionally feel attached to it or you're still feeling something for it.
I feel a sense of you stole my answers.
Oh, mate, relax there, brother. Hey, you still feel a part of it, but you're letting go to move on. And then moving on, there's nothing really attached to it. You're more so using that to use as a stepping stone to get out of it or to improve yourself or something like that. I don't know if that's the best way to explain it, but that's how I see it.
Yeah, well, I definitely feel like there is a difference between letting go and moving on, but there are some things that are still the same within it. To me, I feel like letting go, sometimes you are still attached to this someone or something. So say a person that you were in a relationship with or a career that you really enjoyed. Sometimes you need to let go, even though you still really love this person or this job. You need to let go to be able to let them progress or let yourself progress. Whereas moving on, I feel like you have no more attachment to this thing that you once really cared about. Not saying that you don't care about it anymore or you don't have good memories with this certain situation, but you have fully moved on where you're not being held back emotionally or attached in any way.
It's like that fishing reel. You're hooked. You're not hooked onto it, so you're like trying to, you're trying to move forward, but you're like getting yanked back,
And then you let go of the fish and it swims away.
Well, the fish fucking runs off, gets unhooked. He's like, see you later.
Nemo is like, goodbye.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that's my definition of the two. But when we were talking about this last night, you asked the question, you're like, so does that mean that it was meaningful to you? So I was like, yeah, I think that's the similarity between the two, is that they're both meaningful to you, but just how you attach yourself to this certain someone or something is different.
Yeah, I think it applies to any certain scenario, as you mentioned before, but also depending on that particular scenario, it can be quite impactful in your life, which can dictate whether it is harder to let go or it might take you longer to let go or even moving on.
That is true. But I have a question. So this is how I think in my mind. Do you think that you have to let go before you can move on? Or do you think you can move on and then let go?
Do you think you have to let go
before can move
moving on?
Or can it be the other way around?
I feel like it can be a bit of both, depending on what the situation is.
How?
So in an instance of if it was something tragic, you've got to learn to essentially let go before moving on.
So it always has to be in that process where you have to let go before you can move on, or can it be the other way around?
Because I like in a tragic situation, like say if, like a family member passed away or something like that, you can't essentially move on without any emotional attachment, because that's how I see moving on as. It's more like, well, actually, now that I think about it, I think you could probably do it both ways.
Can you?
Well,
how are you gonna I want to see in your point of view, how do you move on before you have let go?
that scenario that I mentioned before, sure, you could still be emotionally attached, but you are at a point where you're like, okay, maybe I've been dwelling on it or I've been thinking about it for so long. It's time for me to actually move on.
Yeah, but like the understanding is that you have to move on, but you haven't moved on. So you have to let go of this situation
Yeah, true.
before you can move on.
So then okay, all right. So I take that back then.
So
You have to let go.
So the process is you have to let go before you can move on.
Yeah. As I thought, yeah. You've got to let go first.
Because I was just thinking about it. I was like, is there a process? Because there is similarities, like we said, they're both meaningful, but just the difference of what is attached to it is different. So I was just thinking, like, do you have to let go before you can move on?
And I think if you think about it a little bit deeper, you kind of have to accept it first before letting it go.
Yeah, because if you try to move on first before letting go, my thoughts are like, have you truly moved on? Because you're still thinking about this thing, it's still holding you back, or you're still feeling sad about it, so you haven't truly moved on.
Yeah. So you think, in your own opinion, you have to let go, yeah?
Yeah, you have to let go to move on. So letting go is like the step for you to fully move on.
Yeah.
Chanel? You know? Chanel? Yeah, I would like a Chanel bag, please.
Well.
Well, from that, we actually did some research just to see what other people are saying. And there was this example that was actually online, and someone actually broke down the differences between letting go and moving on. And we thought it was really helpful. So we're just going to read some of these. So this person, we will put the link in our description, but how they broke it down is letting go versus moving on. So you want it, but you can't have it is letting go. And moving on is you never want it, but had it. Does that even make sense?
Yeah. So letting go is you want it, but you cannot have it. And then moving on is you never want it, but you had it.
That I don't get. But I get the you want it, but you can't have it point. So in a sense of a relationship, you let go of someone that you like, and you have to let go because you know that they're never going to like you back. So you want something, but you can't have it.
Yeah. And that's letting go. That I can see that emotional attachment there. But then also the moving on part, that's a pretty good way of putting it, I feel.
You never want it, but you had it.
Yeah. You're saying that you had it, but you didn't want it to begin with. Like it was, you got it. It's like, for an example, if a girl like in my instance, if a girl liked me, but I got her, but I never wanted her in the beginning, I just had her. As opposed to me.
Why do you need to move on then? Because you don't really have an attachment to it.
Well, I'm moving on because I've just used it and abused it, and that's it.
Rude.
Like, yeah, and as opposed to the flip side, it's okay, I wanted her, but she's like, I don't like you. She's not reciprocating it. Then that's the letting go. It's the accepting of the fact that she doesn't like me. That's the sad part.
So this next one, you're letting go, you'll regret it later. And moving on, you understand the reasons later. So I think this goes both ways. There's like a different perspective of it. Letting go, maybe you didn't think it through. You let go of someone that you truly cared about, so you might regret it later. Whereas moving on, you truly understand your circumstances. You've accepted what has happened. So it will help you understand the reasons later. So right now, it might not make sense. You just know that you need to move on. And then you let go to be able to move on with life, go into your next phases, and it will make much more sense later on. That's my understanding of this one. And I thought this one was good.
Letting go, you'll regret it later. Moving on, you'll understand the reason later.
So I think he's coming from a point of this person has let go of something that they may not have thought through. And I can really just see these. Like in movies, you see people let go of a partner that they truly liked, but they let them go and they regret letting them go, and it was like the one for them. So I think he's coming from that perspective rather from like a perspective where it's someone that you chose to let go because you cared about them and you want them to be like the better for themselves, whereas this person's let go of someone where
for whatever reason it is that's not
and
for them.
It was the wrong choice.
No, yeah. I think when you, this one kind of gets me at a point where it can be a little confusing to me.
Well, I think it's good that this guy put it this way because there are different ways of letting go. There's like letting go where it may have been the wrong choice, whereas I
Yeah.
think initially where we were coming from is letting go because we chose to let go of something out of the better of someone else or yourself.
Yeah, I think it just depends on how you interpret it too. Yeah.
Which is good. I think these examples really share different
Subjective,
perspectives.
yes.
So another one he said is letting go will make you sad sometimes, and moving on will make you feel better and worthier.
I can see that because letting go, well, you're still emotionally attached. You're letting go for whatever reason it is. So you still have that attachment to it in your mind. You're thinking about it from time to time. When you're self-reflecting and things like that. So you're reminiscing the past times, and you're like, "Fuck, I miss those days," or "I miss that person," or "miss whatever that was." As opposed to moving on. What was
Yeah, it will make you feel better and worthier. So I think this does make sense. I don't know about the worthier may not apply to every situation, but it will make you feel better because you're not holding yourself back. You're not having this emotional attachment that's dragging you down because you're constantly dwelling or thinking about this situation or moment or person, and it will make you feel better. In terms of worthier, I think it could be like moving on from maybe a career or someone that actually wasn't aligned with you and you were holding on because you thought that he was the only one or she was the only one, and moving on and learning more about what actually aligns with you, you know your worth.
Yeah, it's like you're exposed to a whole new world of things that you wouldn't have experienced without moving on from that point.
Yeah. So this last one on moving on, he also said it will build promises within themselves. So this one I think is really interesting, but also quite true because if you think about what aligns with yourself, the promises that you make for yourself and what you do and choices that you make from your day to day. So when you choose to move on, you build promises within yourself and it's following those promises because if you don't choose to move on, you're holding yourself back and you're maybe still choosing to do things that aren't right for you so you don't move on. So I think this is quite a good example.
Can you repeat moving on?
Moving on will build promises within themselves or yourself.
In the episode that we did with Tim, he mentioned that you're not going to be able to, well, one, learn and expose yourself to new things without trying a new piece of pizza. So we're always, by human nature, we eat the same flavor because it's something that we're comfortable with. And he said that without actually trying different flavors, you're not going to know if that new particular flavor is something will work better for you. So in saying that moving on is what it really does relate to, it's saying the fact that for you to move on, you're not really building yourself the building blocks to improve.
Yeah, like I get that point from Tim, but I think in this sense where he's saying you build better promises with yourself, it's actually just promises that you made for yourself. So you're like, I'm never going to do this thing again. I'm never going to do this again, or like I'm never going to go for this type of person again. And to move on and to understand that you've made the wrong choices or you made a mistake, and now I'm going to follow through with my promises. I'm not going to go for another person with this personality or this trait. That's what moving on does, and it builds better promises with yourself. That's my understanding of it. So less of the choosing and trying something different in terms of the pizza sense. I think it's more of understanding what aligns with you and what are you going to do or not going to do ever again.
Learning from your mistakes, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think these are some really good points. There are some that are different takes and perspectives from what we were initially talking about, but I think it's good to share it.
No, so those examples actually remind me of some past experiences of myself, relationship type of experiences. And I remember one example, which was like I think it's like my first girlfriend I ever had. And I remember when you have your first relationship, you're very invested. Everything is new. You're learning all these things, and you say I love you the first time.
How cute.
And then you get all this butterfly feeling and shit like that. Long story short, basically, this particular person broke up with me, and at the same time, I realized that there was other things going on in the background.
To you or her?
Both. I remember thinking, well, why is this person, one, doing this stuff, but also why did this person decide to make a decision to not be with me.
Mm.
So I recall feeling like as if
Your world has ended.
yeah, I remember, dude, it took me like what, 6 or 8 months to really come to my senses of letting go.
So what were you doing during that 6 to 8 months of not coming to your senses of letting go? Like,
Fucking nothing, man. I remember because I was a young buck, I couldn't go anywhere, I couldn't drive, so it was really just me thinking and dwelling. I'm like, far out, I feel like shit, but I'm feeling like this every single day. Why? And I remember just thinking to myself and reflecting to myself, is it really worth me feeling like this over someone that's already moved on and having fun with other dudes and shit like that? If my feelings aren't reciprocated, then it's not really worth being so emotionally attached.
yeah. And then before we move on with that story, something that I was actually thinking about too, to let go, because we said to move on you have to let go, right? But I was thinking to let go, you don't just naturally one day just be like, I need to let this go. In my mind, I think something has to trigger you, or something must have had to happen for you to be like, okay, I need to let this go.
Mm.
So in your case, I think it just happened because obviously that girl let you go. So you have to choose to let go, because it gets to a point in time you can't just sit there and be sad for 6 to 8 months. So that's why I was thinking, when it comes to this point of letting go, it's not a choice that you suddenly just happen to do. It has to be something that triggers it.
Yeah, of course. And I think what really helped me when I actually think about it, it's pretty stupid, but I used to listen to a lot of
Sad
K-pop,
songs?
J-pop. Yeah, a lot of K-pop, J-pop. And I remember I listened to a lot of Boa. And Boa had a lot of like love kind of music.
I don't know, I can't relate. You have to ask my cousin Felicia, because she was a Boa fan.
Yeah, well, anyway, I used to love Boa and Hyori Lee, and I think
Every guy did.
yeah, I think the music helped me at the time, because at the time I couldn't go out. I was still in school. I didn't drive. For me, I think that was what helped me.
Yeah, so going back into, for me as well, what actually got me to think that something has to trigger you to let go, like you don't just decide, is because I actually liked someone for a really long time and thought they liked me back and we'll like hang out. And then one day they're like, no, I actually don't like you. And similar in your case, this is like the first, I didn't end up going out with this person, but it's like your first relationship or your first person that you really liked, and you understand the feeling of liking someone. So I think I was especially attached to this, and it took me a long time to let go. And this one was the hardest one, because I always thought, in my head, I'm like, okay, I need to let this person go. I need to accept this for what it is. And every time I thought I did let go and I've moved on, and then something happens and it triggers me again, and I'm like in this cycle, I'm like, no, I haven't let go. And I'm similar to you. It's like, why am I thinking like this? Why am I feeling like this? And that was the trigger, is that I had to move on because they like someone else and they've already said to me that they don't like me. So it was hard.
Yeah, it brings back some fucking memories. Hey, just the feelings. I know, definitely, I can relate.
Yeah. And this one was a long time. Like this one was more than yours, probably a good 12 months or even more.
Just to get over it, like to move on. I mean, let go.
I don't actually understand or remember because it's so long ago. I think it was partially fully moving on and letting go, but it's also understanding. Like, I don't know if I was just feeling and thinking that I haven't let go, but I actually have already let go. And it's just these lingering emotions that stayed behind, or if I was truly still trying to move on.
Yeah, but did you do anything that helped you? Like, did you go out and talk to people, or?
I think I'm that kind of person, even though I'm sad or I can't let go or something is making me sad, life still moves on. And because of a young age, I've always had situations that make me sad. So I'll still do the things that I do. Like if I had to go to uni, if I had to go to work, if I had to whatever, life moves on. So I'll still do my day to day. I think my understanding is like you just need to let your life continue. Don't stop your life just because there's this one moment that's getting you down or sad. And over time, time heals, as they say, and it really did. So that's what I did. I don't have any special advice for this one.
Yeah, I feel I can think of the heart feelings, you know what I'm saying? Like when I think back, it just
Was there any fear for you though that you were thinking of, like, I don't want to let go because there was a fear?
definitely there was a part of me that was in denial.
Like, do you think she would take you back, sort of thing?
Yeah,
Or
of course. I feel definitely moments of me denying the fact that she did that.
mm,
Fuck, I don't know. I think it was just one of those moments where you think, oh, you're half in denial, then you're half, oh, fuck, I need to move on. And it's one of those never ending circles. And it just got to a point where,
you're sick of your own shit.
yeah, I think, oh, you actually, you know what song I listened to? It was Neo, Sick, So Sick.
Cause I'm so sick
Yeah,
of
that song, dude. I used to play that all the time and cry and shit like that.
That's so funny. I can't imagine you doing that.
Yeah, man.
Did you
Yeah.
actually cry?
Yeah, dude. I was a bit of a
Beach.
a bit of a sissy, mate. A bit of a sissy.
Nah, there's no wrong in crying. Sometimes you just gotta let it out, and then that actually helps you let go and move on. But I don't want to only talk about relationships. I think relationships is the easiest one that everyone can relate to. But there are other situations where I can see I had to choose to let go that isn't around relationships. Could be around something that I'm doing and a thought that I'm doing or a thought that I have in my head. So one of them is piano. I had to let go of doing piano because backstory is I actually started piano when I was 5. I did it till I was about 12, I think. At that time, that was forced. Like any Asian parents, Asian family would know that they force their kids to start learning piano because you need to do all this extracurricular stuff to look cool and like be amazing against your peers. So I did that, but because it was so forced, I hated it. And I made such a big fuss, and I was a kid that never made a fuss. But this time I like stood my ground. I chucked a like massive
Tanny?
yeah, massive tantrum, like hissy fit, whatever you call it. And I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I hate it. I hate how I have to do this every day. So I stopped. And then I moved up to Brisbane with my mom, and I was like, oh, actually, and I saw people playing piano and being all musical, and I'm like, I actually want to get back into it. And this time I did it for myself. Like I truly wanted to learn it. So I got back into it, I think I was like 13, 14. And I did that up until I was maybe 22, 23 or something. And the reason why I said I chose to let go and what triggered me to be like, I need to let this go. I can't keep holding on to this dream that's not going to happen. And it's not because I don't believe in myself that it's not going to happen, but it's being realistic with myself. I'm doing uni. I need to try and find a job, or I was working. I can't remember what the situation was. I don't have time to practice. And am I truly trying to be a musician? Probably not. And that was my answer. Like, it's not really working towards something in the future that will really build me up or work towards something that I really, really want. It was more just a leisure thing. So I chose to let go and stop holding on to this dream that's not really much apart from just learning the skills of playing piano. So I had to let that go, come to terms with it, and be like, okay, let's stop going to piano practice. It's not doing anything. And at the time, being very grateful that my mum was paying for these piano lessons as well. So I didn't want to continue to waste her money as well. So that was what I had to come to terms with and let go with it.
Nice. Your example is kind of similar to one that I just thought about, which is for me that it's about powerlifting. And I think it came to a point where in the early 20s, you know, you've got that free time. You can dedicate working out and just training and focusing. Your recovery is fucking second to none. You know, you can eat whatever you want and you can still perform optimally. Came to my senses where I think, I feel that I could just retrain to the level or the performance that I thought I could be.
Like muscle memory, just pick it back up.
Yeah. And it just came to a point where I'm like, fuck, I can't, like you, I don't have the time to invest and train and put so much energy into trying to get to the best.
Are you talking about this is a recent thought or?
Yeah, recent thought. Because I'm thinking, well, coming back into it, I want to be the best of the best. I'm always like someone who...
I want to be the very best that no one ever was. Pokemon.
Got to catch more, I guess.
Yeah, gotta catch them all.
Yeah, so similar thought is in you're trying to catch more, you're trying to get to the best of the best.
Yeah, trying to catch all your goals.
But, it comes to a realization where as you get older, commitments, time is hard to buy in training. So
I think it's also prioritizing. Like there are all these things that you want and all these things that you need, and you just have to prioritize. And same case, like your gym, weightlifting, where you want to go with it, and my piano. Like where does this fall against all the other priorities that you have?
Yeah. And I think you have that emotional attachment on the fact that fucking you used to lift this hard and this heavy and you were all good, but coming to reality, you're like, hang on, I try to do that and you're like, fuck, I can't do it.
Actually, in that sense of saying that, the emotional attachment, that's true, because as simple as it is when someone's hearing that I had to let go of piano, you're like, there's something that everyone does every day. Like you pick up a hobby, you let it go, you move on. But the reason why I was so attached to this is because I really love music. I really love being able to play piano. And I did have some sort of, I guess, background dream that I could be the best, the very best, or like really good at it. And to let go, it was a scary thought, because then my thought is like, I'll never be good. And it's understanding why am I thinking like this and why was I so afraid to let go. And I felt like I lost a part of my identity because everyone knew that I played piano. I wasn't good at it, but people just knew that I was the person who knew how to play piano, and to stop that and not be able to practice or play. And it's like, who am I now without this part of me that can play piano? So this is why I think letting go is so much bigger than just relationships.
Yeah. And talking about musicality, another thing just came up to my head is dancing for me. I used to love dancing because dancing to me is a free expression of how you truly feel. And back then I used to do a lot of break popping and crumping and shit like that.
Should I put up a video?
Do not put the video. Anyway,
recently?
We recently went back. Well, not recent. It was like a month or two, right?
Yeah, with my sister Alicia. You know who you are. Yo.
Yeah, we went to do some hip hop foundation beginner stuff, and holy fucking shit, dude!
It's the best video
I'm
ever.
so bad. I'm so stiff and shit, and I just can't move.
I'm gonna put it up.
No, don't put it up. It's embarrassing. And shout out to Errol. Thanks, man. You zoomed up on my dance in the video, dude. It was so embarrassing. But hey, look, I tried. Yeah, but just going back and seeing people dance made me realize how much I miss freestyle, like freestyle popping, crump, and just all that sort of stuff. Because what I loved about freestyle was to be able to do freestyle jams. And I remember I used to go to freestyle jams all the time with Steve, my mate, and just to be able to listen to a song and just vibe out based on how you feel and to interpret the musicality of that song. Like I miss that feeling. And for me, I have that attachment because that was a way of me showing my true self or sense of how I feel or how like my mood for that particular day. If I feel angry, I'll freestyle angrily. Like I'll emphasize on my feeling based on how I dance.
So was there something particularly that happened or triggered you to have to let go of dancing?
I think
or
it was
the thought of what dance was for you.
At the time was just, like I said, it was part of a community, but it was also at the same time, it was a great way to express how I felt without actually saying it in words. Taking it outside of dance,
a creative outlet.
Yeah, it's like a creative outlet as opposed to being angry or as opposed to speaking to someone and saying, hey, this is how I feel.
Yeah. So what was the thing that triggered you or it made you have to let go of that though?
Letting go of dance was more the fact of it was just, like I said, the priority had changed. Lifestyle had changed. And at the same time, all these other factors of life and friends moving on from it, it took away from that vibe check. I just didn't have the opportunity to do it. And yeah, some people might say, look, hey man, why don't you go back? Why don't you go to do it and stuff like that? But I think, yes, I could probably do that, but that's time and money. And
that's a good question though that came to my mind, because you're saying that all your friends stopped doing it and then you're like, maybe I need to let it go. How do you break between doing it for yourself because you wanted to do it, or you're letting go because no one else is doing it anymore.
When you think about it in a deeper sense, why did you do it from the beginning?
Mm,
You know what I mean? If you did it because it was a true outlet of like you say, creativity,
creative
well,
outlet.
creative outlet. So you're doing it for that reason rather than you're doing it for friends. But I feel like that's what makes the community is everything.
The people that you're doing it with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I reflect on that, it was definitely a combination of a lot of things like priorities in life, less time, you're focusing on other things in life that really took away my time to do those things. But talking about something a little bit deeper, reeling it back to relationships, I remember letting go of a particular relationship where
That you chose to let go.
that I chose to let go for the purpose of allowing this particular person to improve and to get better. So to give you context, this particular person was going through a few things like depression and just battles of her own. And being a young 20-year-old fella at the time, it was really difficult for me to navigate, but also understand what she was going through. And I realized that me being inside the picture was a restriction for her. And not to say that I gave up on the person. I definitely tried my ass off to try to understand the situation, the scenario, the person, and try and work with it. But ultimately came down to the point where this person needed actual professional help.
But why did you think that you were also adding to it?
I personally felt that at the time, me being in the picture was an excuse for that person to not seek professional help.
Like they were just depending on
Yeah,
you?
like they were, potentially like just relying on me to help with that professional sense. And it came to like a massive roadblock because I obviously didn't know what the hell was going on. And it was hard for me to navigate as well. So it was really coming to the senses of just letting go of that person and forcing that person to actually seek professional help.
Mm, yeah, I think that's a good one. And it's a really good example of how sometimes you are still very attached to this person, situation, but you have to let go for the better of the other person and even yourself too. Because I can imagine the relationship and how it would also affect the relationship between having that happen and understand what they're going through and then putting that on you and depending on you as well.
Yeah, 100%, because you obviously still have the emotional attachment, but at the same time, when you're trying to navigate something that is so foreign to you, it has a backlash effect to you.
I think in a sense as well, letting go, you have to be able to see the bigger picture because when you're very focused in the current situation, the small bubble, it's really hard to let go until you see the bigger picture, which in your case is seeing the better of this person to be able to let them grow or recover or help themselves heal. Like to see that bigger picture is what helped you let go.
Yeah, yeah.
So another deep one. This one sounded very sad and going off that like depression route. I wasn't depressed, but this is an example of how I had to let go of a really unhealthy thought. And this is something that brewed over time because of a really challenging upbringing and just situations, which built a really unhealthy mindset in myself. I always thought that I wasn't good enough. And this isn't something that I ever voiced to people, it's just things that I thought to myself. And it even showed through my actions. So if I was to be within like friends or groups or work or something, I never believed in myself. And in my head, I'm just like, nah, I don't have a chance. Like, I'm not good enough. And in relationships, I never even pursued relationships. I never thought or went down that route. But if I truly thought deep down, like, why did I ever think like that? I truly thought that no one would understand me and no one would like me for me. But until I really stepped out of this, I had to let go of this thought because all of this is pulling me back to become a better person. And I really had to sit and come into terms with myself and be like, you can't think like this. Yeah, there are times that you may not be good enough, like quote unquote good enough. And there is always going to be someone that's better than you, but you can't think like that to yourself. Like you always have to believe in yourself because you are your biggest cheerleader. And if you can't be your own biggest cheerleader, how is anyone else going to stand for you as well? So I really had to let go of this thought and move on from this, like truly understand and move on that I can't think like this. And it really helped me.
Yeah, what did you do to help you?
I can't really pinpoint what I did, but it's a progression over years, like slowly just believing in myself and knowing that.
Knowing your worth? Is that?
I don't know. I think I might have seen things as black and white, like it's either you're good or you're bad. But in life, it's not that. And it's either people like you or you don't like you. And it's still not black and white. There are so many elements and layers and characteristics and anything in between that influences that. And just because you're not as good as someone else doesn't mean that you're not good. Or just because you're not like this person over here doesn't mean that you're not a good person or you're not great or you're not talented. So that's, I think, the biggest mindset is it's not black and white. There's so many layers and there's 50 shades of grey.
That's exactly right. 50 shades, 50 shades, baby, 50 shades.
What are you doing? A selling auction thing?
Yeah, 50 shades, 50 shades. That's it. And that is true because a lot of things are great. You can do this or that to navigate whatever your journey is.
Well, let's not call it grey. I think there's many colors and many shades of the rainbow out there. And just because your shade of color isn't aligned with someone else's shade of color doesn't mean that you're not great, you're not beautiful.
It's like that TV show that K-drama we recently watched where this dude has a special power to go back into time, and his life and journey, he did his thing to navigate and realize how he could control his history, like his power. So basically every time he went back, it's all grey. Fast forward to the very end, he was able to make it all colorful and shit when he touches it. So it was just him coming to his senses of realizing what truly made him happy, what made him be his true self. And that's what made him turn the grey into color. I don't know why the fuck that came to my head. I'm sorry. I just talk shit. Sorry.
Yeah, that was a load of shit talking I tuned out.
Yeah. Wait, mate. Another experience that's more on the flip side on moving on perspective. So I think being made redundant was one. So I've been made redundant from two particular roles in my professional career.
We actually did an episode on this, so you can actually go back and listen to Sam being made redundant.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is just coming to the realization that, yes, this is what's happened, but you've got to take the necessary steps to move forward and try to keep going. And the first time that I was made redundant, that was probably one of the hardest situations that I had to battle.
This is the first time.
Yeah, first time I've ever experienced that before. And that took me a bit of time because I had to let go. I had to understand.
You were let go.
I was literally let go.
Into the air.
Yeah. And I had an emotional attachment because I've never had that feeling before.
What was the feeling? Like, what was your attachment?
I was more of I'm a useless piece of shit.
That's a bit harsh.
Yeah, I'm a useless piece of shit. Why the fuck? And at the same time, I was trying to navigate a new industry at that time. So it was really a hard time for me because I didn't really know what to do. But yeah, it took me a solid, 6 to 9 months or something, I think.
So would you say that this situation, even though it's talking about work, you had to move on from what you were thinking or feeling?
Yeah.
About the
100%.
situation?
Yeah, I think it was more coming to the acceptance of, okay, this is what's happened. Yes, I had an emotional attachment, but it coming to the acceptance of what happened, then I was able to move on.
So what did you do particularly in this situation to fully move on?
I think it was just reaching out to people, talking to people, trying to find people to relate to a particular story, similar story, scenario. And that helped me come to an acceptance or come to a point where I was like, okay, I'm not the only one. And that was just a small part of my pivot in my career.
Yeah. No, that's a good example. I'm glad that you could move on from that. But you can actually show, because in the second time you got made redundant, you bounced back way faster, like extremely fast. You're just like, yep, I've got this. I'm going to call everyone. I'm going to talk to people. And then you got a job within like the next month or something.
Yeah. It was like an ejecto cuz button. And then I was like, no, fuck
see
that.
you later.
Yeah.
So, from all of these, though, what are the lessons that you've learned from being able to let go and understand the situation and move on? Like, what are the lessons?
Yeah, man, letting go and moving on, far out. So this one actually thought about for a long time. And at first, like I said at the very start, I feel like I got it twisted in terms of the differences between letting go and moving on. But then as we all were talking about it, I was like, fuck, okay, it's actually like there are similarities, but it is different.
Is a different part of the process of it.
Yeah. It's like a truncated process. You're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. You can't just go 1 to 5, I guess.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and then?
Yeah, anyway, so yeah, I think it's definitely a tough lesson, especially if you're navigating something like this for the first time. Like I said, dialing back to the redundancy thing, like at first it was a totally new experience and it was such a slap in the face. So realistically, it was a tough lesson, it was a tough experience, but it really comes back down to like ultimately it's being resilient, being able to move with what's going on.
Yeah. I think the lessons that I've learned is that you need to truly understand the bigger picture, like why this thing may have happened or why it may have occurred. Because if you don't understand this, you won't be able to move on or let go. And that's the biggest lesson that I've learned because things happen to you for a reason. And if you're constantly sitting there blaming the situation or victimizing yourself or thinking that you're the only one that's being affected by this, then there's something bigger than that. Like there's a bigger lesson that needs to be learned outside of you thinking that.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I reflect back and I go, well, what's my purpose in what the fuck's going on? Or what's the why? Something's happened for a reason. So I have to think on like you said, on a larger scale of what my purpose is within that, whatever that's happened, and then work towards that.
Yeah. So overall, what are some tips for people who may be going through situations of trying to let go and they feel like they're stuck, like they aren't able to move on or they aren't able to let go at this point in time?
Yeah. This one.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I think with letting go, it's really just understanding what is happening, but also accepting what has changed and letting go and coming to the senses of, okay, this is happening. You need to keep moving forward essentially, right?
What if this person, because there are some people, I mean, some situations where you can fully let go, but then there's also a level of persistence. So when do you know to persist and not let go and be like, no, I've got this. So going back into like movies and stuff where people are persisting to chase someone and because they persisted, they actually end up with that person. So what's that balance between knowing if I should let go or if I should persist?
Yeah, that's a fucking good question. I think depending on the scenario, like you said, but if it's like if we were to pinpoint it to a category, like a relationship, what's the fine balance with persisting before saying, okay, it's time to let go? And I think if you've given yourself a solid number of times that you're being persistent in achieving a
I think it's
particular.
also how willing are you to put time and effort into
Yeah.
this. So if it's not really worth your time and effort and you're like, it's not really that worth it, then it's okay to let go. But if you're like, no, I really want this person or I really want this job and I've been rejected 10,000 times. But if you keep persisting and you're okay with spending the time to keep going for it, I think that's all right.
Yeah, but sometimes people are a little blindsided by what they truly want.
Yeah, that's a different story though.
So, yeah, look, I think if you've given it a try and it's like if you tried it once or twice or 3 times and it's giving you the same thing, it's time to move on. It's time to come to the acceptance of, hey, look, it's not going to change.
Well, I think in a different perspective is you need to let go of that strategy that you were using to approach the situation too. You let go and then actually try a different strategy. So if the situations you want to persist, let go of what you've tried before and try something else in a different angle as well.
Yeah, you gotta hit it from different angles.
Yeah. I think also this is more mindset to truly move on. I think some people might think that moving on is that you've forgotten about this situation or you don't care about this situation anymore. but it's not that. Moving on doesn't mean that you've forgotten or you've let go. Say, for example, a loved one has passed away and people are afraid to move on. It's not that you will forget about that person or you forget about the memories. Know that even though you've moved on, you can still be grateful and treasure the memories that you have with this person or this moment or situation as well. And I think that's the biggest tip, is remembering that moving on doesn't mean that you've forgotten.
Yeah, that's actually a big importance there. It's not because I've forgotten it. It's more so I still cherish it, but I'm just choosing to keep going, like to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And that relates to your feelings, your emotions, and it's coming to the senses of, hey, look, if you do feel sad, let that feeling fucking soak in. Don't shovel it. Like at least acknowledge and recognize what's going on and let that flow. Because if you don't, then you're just going to...
It's going to come back and bite you in the ass.
Yeah, it's going to ring sting you.
No.
Which is not good. You don't want that.
Yeah, and a lot of people put sadness and negative feelings aside because they don't want to feel it, but you need to let yourself feel to be able to overcome it and let that feeling leave your body or leave your mind, because if you don't, it's only going to bottle up more and more.
Yeah, and a good way that I think of it is, like, as an example, like when my dad passed away, it was more of that emotional feeling of, oh shit, this is what's happened, but I haven't really acknowledged that whatever has happened has happened. And
like you didn't sit with yourself
I didn't
understand that he's actually
I didn't sit with
gone.
myself. I didn't self-reflect. I didn't actually soak in what had truly happened. And until I actually did that, that's when fucking all these emotions hit me in the face.
And you said that was like a year later, right?
Yeah, that was exactly right. It's about a year later before I realized, oh, fuck, this is what's happened. And the year prior to that, that was me just hiding or just shoveling it under the rug because I didn't really want to face it.
Yeah. I think also understanding, some people don't want to let go because they may have not gotten closure or an answer or an understanding. And in certain situations, not saying all of them, sometimes you may not get closure or you may not ever understand why someone chose to do something. Like, for example, your ex-girlfriend that let you go. Sometimes people might explain themselves, some people might not, and you may not ever get closure from that. So you have to understand, don't hold on just because you haven't gotten an answer. And if you truly come to terms with what has happened and understand that, like, the only thing that you can do, because you can't control what you can't control.
Yeah, it's one of those things that is a never-ending question, but ultimately you've just got to come to the realization of what's actually happened. And
yeah, so if you have any other tips or thoughts around what you think about the differences between letting go and moving on, we'll be keen to hear what you say and let us know in our DMs on Instagram.
yeah, likewise, thank you for joining us, and we will see you guys in the next episode.
Goodbye.
Peace.